Welcome to Knit Together with Kim and Jonna. I'm Jonna.
And I'm Kim.
And we are back in we call it our studio, but it's really my half yarn room.
Yarn room, sewing room, baby's room.
Baby's room. Yep, Teddy's downstairs in his large kennel.
He got so much bigger.
Yeah.
We should try to get another picture of him.
I know. If I weren't wearing knitwear, someone asked if he could be our channel mascot. I was like, yeah, because he loves yarn in a bad way. So if I wear this, he'll definitely try and rip it off my neck.
When my daughter Jenny got her new dog, when was it? I don't know, last year sometime. I was so surprised because we haven't had a new puppy in our house in forever. Mm-hmm. And I sat my knitting bag down when I went to her house and walked away, and the dog grabbed a ball of yarn out of it and just started running around the house. And I really had to hide my bag and my yarn every single time I was there and guard it with my life.
Yeah, he's
so
had
funny.
The last two berets I knitted, he had in his like jaws of death grip. Yeah, I thought I'm never going to see those again. So
that's so funny.
Fortunately, he's still young enough where he falls for like the treat thing. You know, if I offer him a treat, he'll drop whatever it is he has. So
well, that's good because it would be hard to pry knitwear.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Out of their
so
mouths.
I know absolutely no knitting. If I knit, I'm at the kitchen counter and the yarn's on the counter, and so yeah, not a lot of knitting going on.
No more cozy, comfy knitting.
No,
you can't just sneak up here. Or...
I could. I just spend all my time in the kitchen with him, though. So we wanted to film another Ask Us Anything episode because the last one we did was sort of personal. We answered all the fun personal questions and, a few knitting questions here and there. But there were so many knitting questions that I really felt like we needed to have a whole other episode. So
this is it.
Less drinking, less food.
Ask us.
No wine. Ask us anything. Knitting edition. So we're going to start with some member questions.
Yeah.
So, all right. The first question is from Eva P. Hi, Eva.
Hi.
Who would most likely give up on a new technique or pattern that seems difficult on a design you really want to knit?
Do you have an answer right away?
Oh, I think so.
Okay, go.
Well, I think I would probably give up.
You would give up?
I think so. I think because knitting to me is just, I want to love it and I want to enjoy what I'm doing. And, if it doesn't bring me joy, I'm like, yeah, I'm done with you. So
that's funny.
I mean, I think I don't know that I've ever come across that situation.
Right.
So I can't say for sure. Maybe I'd be intrigued and maybe I'd want to figure it out and,
I think more than a new technique, I know once you want to do the cumulus blouse, and it had something, I don't know, what was it, short rows or the I-cord neckline, and you didn't
I was intimidated.
Right, because I think you had to buy some sort of the videos or something to learn how to do it.
I think I wanted to make the cumulus blouse, and I settled for some other kind of V-neck t-shirt, and the directions were very recursive, so it was like do rows 1 through 4, and then rows 4 and 5 were do rows 1 and 2 again, and then rows 6 and 7 were do rows 3 and 4 again, and it seemed like it was going around in circles, and I just was not having fun.
You didn't want to. Yeah,
I wasn't having fun.
You weren't having fun.
And I also was still a very new knitter. Right.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't have the patience. I didn't have, what we call in math, the mathematical maturity, which is really just experience. So I didn't have the knitting maturity to work through that pattern. So,
but I don't know if that was a specific technique. For me, no, if I want to knit it, I'll just learn what I need to learn.
You will grin and bear it.
Yeah. Wait till you see this thing.
I know.
I did not bring it because I would be tempted to show it.
Yeah.
Right now, of course, I'm working on the baby blanket because it's easier. But we have the friend who introduced us, right? Last Christmas, we wanted to give her a Christmas gift. And then we thought, well, why don't we knit her something? And then I think you asked what she would want.
I'm not sure if I asked or if she came to me and said,
can you knit something like this?
Yeah, can you knit something? And she is worried about being too hot, so she And she doesn't like turtlenecks, anything around her neck. Mm-hmm. And so she said, can you knit me something that's like what Katniss wears in the Hunger Games? I was like, let me check on that. So I actually put the word Katniss into the search bar in Ravelry, and a bunch of like, it's like a cowl or a sling or a...
Yeah, it's like a cowl attached to a sling that goes under one arm.
Right. Because Katniss in the movie is a huntress, is a, what would you call someone who shoots
an archer?
An archer. So she needs to have, I don't know, one arm free.
I guess.
And so our friend sent us this painting that's in her house with all these beautiful colors in it. And she said, these are my favorite colors. And we happened to find yarn that matched the painting.
Yeah, we didn't really... It was too late for last Christmas to really do it. Yeah. And then in the summer, we happened to be at Pick Up Every Stitch at the same time, and we thought about it. That's the other thing. When we're there, then we have to think about it. Mm-hmm. And so we started looking at the yarn, and we found this yarn that looked like this picture. It was basically a sunset picture, right? It was a beautiful sunset. Mm-hmm. And so we bought the yarn last summer, and her birthday's in the summer, but then again, it was too late to...
Well, we had all the yarn festivals.
Yes, and so much going on.
We were doing the knit-along.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she every once in a while she'll say, "How's that cowl? How's that thing coming along?" I'm like, "Oh,
it wasn't." But when I finished all the hats,
your 47 hats,
24 monster cable beanies
plus,
and 2 Oslo hats.
Yeah,
that was crazy. You'll hear about that too in episode 15.
Yeah.
But anyway, once I was finished with that, I said to Jonna, just. Also, I've been struggling with a cold, like getting over a cold.
You were home a lot.
I was home a lot the last week and a half. So I said, bring that yarn over here and I'll start that thing.
Yeah.
So I did. The knitting was easy. I got that done in 2 days.
Right.
But then you make all these braids, regular braids, fishtail braids, different size braids.
Long braids, short braids.
And then
fat braids, skinny braids.
You sew all these braids on it.
I know.
And so that's what I'm in the middle of right now.
It's sort of like a costume.
Yeah, it is. I'm actually hoping to finish it because maybe I could wear it if it doesn't look kind of ridiculous. I could wear it for episode 15, but we'll see. Anyway, but that, I guess it's not techniques, but just the whole technique of doing all these braids and then, is it called applique? I'm like appliquing them all over this thing. It's easy to want to just give up and say forget it and do less braids.
Well, that's just more tedious. But what's maybe the hardest technique you've ever done? That was actually, the intarsia is pretty hard.
Probably the intarsia at this point.
Yeah.
Stranded color work I found really easy.
That didn't put you off at all. So
no, I was just going to do it. So I guess that was a long answer.
Right.
No,
we better get through these.
So you would most likely give up. I don't think you would give up on a new technique.
I don't know.
You would give up on a frustrating pattern instructions,
right?
Or if you don't like the fabric that's being created,
which has happened several times.
Yes, or like you said, you're not having fun.
Yeah, sometimes a yarn and a pattern don't have a baby.
Yes,
that's what I say. And so this, if every stitch is a struggle, I'm done.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Pat V. Hi, Pat.
Hi, Pat.
Who we met at Women Folk.
We did.
She was wearing a Knit Together with Kim and Jonna t-shirt.
She was.
Yeah.
I think that's the only fan we've ever seen with an actual one of our t-shirts on, right?
T-shirts on.
So fun.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you. What pattern have you been avoiding because you are worried or intimidated by the design or stitch combinations? And I think we've established that you don't avoid anything, but... Is there a specific pattern?
Well, I avoided the Orkney for a long time because I had never done stranded color work, and I wanted to make it into
in the round instead of flat.
Steek it and everything. So I put that off for 2 years. Have I been avoiding anything now? No. I'm just trying to get the stuff done. Maybe I've been avoiding getting back into my Amina because when I don't typically put things down for a while, and so it just seems I cast that on a year ago. I don't think that's ever happened that I've cast something on and a year later it's not finished. So that's intimidating just thinking of picking it back up. But what about you?
I have to say, so there's 2 things. There's 2 whips that are sort of haunting me. And one is the Zoria, and it's a silly thing. am worried about picking up the stitches along the 2 front parts to start the back. I'm just worried, like, because it's lace, it's not like just picking up stockinette.
Mm-hmm.
So what if I don't do it correctly? What if it doesn't look good? So I'm a little bit on that. And then my Letho sweater. So I'm fine with doing welts. And, you know, honestly, it's kind of like doing that on the Oslo hat when you pick up a stitch from the cast on and then you have them stitch on your needle and you knit them together. So it's very similar to that. And it's very rhythmic and methodical, and I don't mind doing it, but I'm worried about doing it from hem to hem. From one hem all the way around the back of my neck to the other hem.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And if you get off a stitch, then it's just a little bit cockeyed. So I'm a little nervous about that.
Yeah.
I did the double provisional cast on, and that went great.
That is like under the arm or something?
Under the arm.
Yeah.
Because then the sweater grows out from the side seam.
Right.
So it's actually knit sideways instead of, top to bottom. So it's knit sideways. There is, and this kind of goes along with another question, which is kind of your, your dream project. And do you have one since you made the Orkney, which was your dream project?
That was my dream project. I think, do I have a dream project? I think the Decision cardigan.
Oh, okay.
Which I think is going to be my next one. After Here Comes the Sun, when I finally finish these other things, then I will do Here Comes the Sun, and then Decision won second place anyway. So I'll do Decision. There's something about the cables, with that gorgeous yarn you got me, held with mohair, and it comes with a zipper version. That's one thing I'm intimidated by. I did one.
You did one zipper.
I just think I'll never do another zipper again. So there's one I'll avoid.
Yeah.
I'd rather do a button band and buttonholes or do none. The option for that is to do nothing, no closure, or do the zipper, but I might modify it and do some sort of closure. But anyway.
Right. I mean, I honestly think I'm intimidated by a lot of things. And, easily intimidated by the double button band on some of the petite knit things. But I think, the more things I knit, the more I think, how hard can it be?
Yeah. I mean, you always do things beautifully. So
thank you. And if it doesn't work out and I'm not enjoying it, I'd love to make the cumulus buffs now that I have a little bit more knitting maturity, because it's such a beautiful
It's so
garment.
beautiful. Karen was it Karen wearing one recently? Somewhat recently?
Karen did one.
So beautiful. Love it.
Yeah. So
nice.
Yeah. So I don't know if I'm really avoiding this pattern, and it kind of goes along with your dream project, is the Valentina coat by Martin Story. When I saw that,
You've shown a picture in the past.
Yeah, I just thought, my goodness. And I don't think I would wear it, number one. So that is a reason not to knit it. My mother would love it. I don't know that she'd ever wear it in Texas because it is a coat. It's intarsia, it's color work, it's probably very heavy, but it is absolutely stunning. It's got these floral motifs, but then all over color work, kind of as a background. And it's black, and the model who's modeling it is just stunning, and everything about that is so romantic. And I mean, oh my goodness, I could see wearing it to the opera or something. It's just a showstopper.
Actually, when you asked me what my dream project was, or when the first thing that came to my mind was to knit that for you.
Oh my gosh. I don't know.
And totally surprise you and not tell. But now that I know you won't wear it, forget it.
I know. I would be literally speechless. Well, if you made it for me, I would wear it. But,
it's a coat. It's down to the just above the knee or something.
It is. It's a very long.
It has
cardigan.
a kimono style to it, right?
It does. It's just the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
A lot of those. What's her name? Anne. I have the book over there. The Tudor collection, Tudor Roses. Oh no, it's Alice. Alice Starmore. Garments are just the most
gorgeous.
Bella from 100 Acre Wool.
Yes, she made
knit
that beautiful
one
jacket.
of the jackets. That is the color she chose. Oh my goodness. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen.
It is.
And it's cool because, she knitted in pieces. And so each piece, there's a sense of completion, I think.
Yes.
Where you're not overwhelmed by this entire garment to knit all at once, but she knitted in pieces.
Right.
And oh my goodness, if you haven't watched that episode, I can't remember the name of the jacket. Wasn't the Anne Boleyn or...
I don't know. I'll insert her picture. She won't mind, I'm sure.
Okay.
I think I contacted her last time we shared her picture.
My dad said, when you held up that book about the wild knitted animals, it was backwards. I was like, oh, right. So,
when we film with iPhones, it shows everything back reversed.
But not with the camera.
The camera, it doesn't. Why is that? That's so weird.
Oh, because when you're filming with the camera... I had it facing me. So as the camera flipped.
I see.
Yes, the camera's flipped.
And that's why?
Yeah.
So if you had it the other way and you couldn't see yourself, it would have been the right way?
I think so.
All those iPhone people tell us. And you're sticking with it?
And I'm sticking with it, so I don't know.
But that sweater was absolutely, that jacket she made, Bella made, was divine. And I would love to knit a lot of those just for the challenge of knitting them. But like you said, there's a lot of things I want to knit, but I wouldn't wear.
Right.
And there's a lot of things I want to wear, but I don't want to knit them, I guess.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, we're the same that way. Because sometimes I say that to people and they're like, no, that makes no sense to me.
Yeah.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
No, I totally get it. Absolutely.
Do you want to read the next one?
Andrea D. Hi, Andrea.
Hi.
We haven't met Andrea yet, right?
In our Facebook group.
Oh, okay. Cool. So she asked, how do you get the perfect fit for your sweaters? We don't. No, I'm kidding. I'm good with cardigans, but still trying to find the perfect pullover recipe. I don't get the perfect fit. There's always something that I'm not quite... Again, though, I haven't really knit myself that many sweaters. Actually, today I was going to wear my kaleidoscope sweater, and I like it, but I wish it was a tiny bit longer. I made it a little shorter than I should have, and that was the very first actual sweater I knit for myself, and I'm not going to go back and rip it out. But I feel like when I sit, like it doesn't cover in the back. I don't know. You guys wouldn't see it, so who cares? But I don't think any of them fit perfectly necessarily.
Do you think it has to do with the raglan shaping versus a circular yoke versus a pieced sweater that you sew together?
I mean, I guess I'm fine with all of the fit of them. I did realize, which I've talked about, that I tend to want to knit a bigger size. So sometimes I feel like everything's too big, like oversized. I don't know. I mean, I guess they fit the way they're supposed to fit and the way I've chosen them to fit. But I don't know. What about you?
What was the question?
How do you get the perfect fit for your sweaters?
For a pullover. So the funny thing is the Felix pullover fits me perfectly. So I don't know if it's about knitting enough sweaters to find that one sweater that's like the length of the arms is perfect. The shape of the width of the body is perfect. The length of the body is perfect. So I often use that sweater as a guide. So I'll measure the length of the arms. I'll measure the length of the body. I love how wide the neckline is. And that is a raglan shaped sweater. So I made, what's that, by Caitlin Hunter, the one that the Soldotna. And that was my first colorwork sweater, I believe. And it's tiny. It's short. It's, I can, the yoke is a little snug. I didn't probably go up a needle size. And so ever since that sweater, I've always been worried that something's going to be too small. So I think I tend to knit the bodies of my sweater a little bit bigger than I wish they were, than I need to. Like my No Frills is I would definitely go down a size if I knit that one again. And I don't think it's a gauge issue. I got gauge, but you always have that fear of something being, too tight around your middle or, you just don't want anything to be too snug. So,
That makes sense.
Yeah. So keep knitting. And honestly, find out the ones, the sweaters that you like the fit of. Do you like a circular yoke? Do you like a raglan? There's actually, like the ranunculus has a circular yoke with some raglan shaping. And then there's the whole saddle shoulder thing, what kind of shoulder shaping, if you have sloped shoulders, what kind of shoulder shaping would be best for you? If you have square shoulders, what kind of shoulder shaping would be best for you? And what's a great book is the Vogue knitting book.
I have that one.
Yeah, I think it's just called Vogue Knitting. It's over there on the shelf. And it's a great book for reference and all the different kinds of shoulders. But I know there's lots of books out there on sweater shaping. That'd be a great question for Patty Lyons too.
But I know recently in a was it our Christmas video, our last Vlogmas video, you wore your love note and it just fits you so beautifully. And I think too, other people they'll look at our stuff and say, "Oh, it fits perfectly," but
we don't feel
right. Yeah, so it might look like it fits perfectly, and I mean it does. They're fine. They're all fine.
That sweater fits perfectly. I just bound off too tightly on the arms, and it really bothers me.
And you can't see that when you're looking at it.
No, and I really should take it out. I really should, and I'd probably wear it. And I really don't wear it very often.
Yeah.
So.
But your soldotna too, I think it just looks so gorgeous on you, but you tend to not wear it. It doesn't feel uncomfortable when you wear it.
No, not at all. I just am self-conscious that maybe my armpits show, and it's very cropped, so I need to wear a t-shirt underneath it, or I need to wear it over a jumper.
It's just so beautiful. I love it so much.
I would love to reknit it now that I'm a more experienced knitter.
Yeah, maybe when I knit mine, because I have the yarn, the Kristen Lehrer yarn. I have Woolen Vine yarn.
Yeah.
Then maybe when I knit mine, you can knit another one.
I know.
We can knit them together.
The colors she chose are amazing. And also, I think I've learned, and one of the questions, if we get to it, was about your biggest knitting fail. But going up in needle size and color work is so important, I think, for me. So, do you find that? Because you're a tight knitter.
I've only knit one yoked sweater because my Orkney, the whole entire thing was color work, so you don't have to do it. It's only if part of it's color work and part of it isn't. And so
So once you got gauge, you were on the needle.
Yeah, yeah. And the only one is the one I just recently wore, my Meadow Moon, was the yoked. It's really the only thing I've done, right? And I probably went up a needle size because you told me or I read it. Yeah, so I just do what the instructions say or what you tell me. I don't know. I don't like trial and error. I just want to knit it once and have it be done with. I don't want to mess it up. But anyway.
Well, that class you took at Vogue Knitting Live in 2020 from the guy...
Josh Bennett,
that was all about how to design a sweater that fit you.
Yes.
So that would be another suggestion, is to take an online class, take a class at Vogue Knitting Live about sweater construction.
I mean, that helped me a lot. And then also, and I can never remember her name, and I'm sorry, Indigo Dragonfly, she is on Instagram. I did one of those virtual Vogue Knitting Lives, and I took like a 2 or a 3-part class with her on modifying your sweaters, like really modifying them. If you have a bigger bust or, just so many different ways to modify it. And that helped me a lot. And she had us use this My Body model thing where you go in and you measure your whole body and you go into this website and it prints out an actual... almost like a paper doll of you and all your measurements, and I keep that. Well, I was keeping it. By the way, my new knitting planner doesn't have a pocket in the back.
Oh no!
Last year it had a pocket, so I would keep that My Body double. I would keep that little paper doll thing with all the measurements in the back, and I would keep my current patterns folded up in the back. And it doesn't have a pocket. I'm so sad.
I wonder if one of the inserts that you can buy separately is a pocket insert.
Maybe I'll have to go look.
Yeah.
And it was the very last page before, so maybe I didn't really look thoroughly. I thought I did, but anyway. Yeah. Otherwise I love it.
Well, and a little plug for the knitting planner. This is my second one, and you gave it to me. You gifted it to me. And I have to say, it is a planner first for knitters. It's not a knitting planner because there are goals and, lists to do and
just life things,
life things.
Right.
Exactly. So even if you don't use it for knitting, you could never use it for knitting and still enjoy it.
Yes.
I think the layout is great. I love the idea of, thinking about what I want to accomplish in life and, books I want to read and, time I want to spend and yeah.
So you've been using it?
Yeah, I have. Not as much as I want to because of the 10-pound furry critter who lives in my house who absorbs every moment of my waking and sometimes my sleeping.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I have to say, I'm really, really pleasantly surprised with the knitting planner.
That's great.
So we do have an affiliate link down below. So, and we do get a tiny commission. Just full disclosure.
Yeah.
But,
so if you want to order one.
Yeah, and it's definitely worth every penny. So, yeah.
I love mine. I love mine. And there's something so joyous and hopeful about, cracking open your new knitting planner and thinking of all the possibilities of the new year.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So fun.
Yep.
All right. So we still don't get the perfect fit for our sweaters. So give us your tips.
Right.
Anne H. Is there anything knitting that is off limits? Something you won't make or a technique that you won't do?
Oh, that's kind of like Pat's question. Anything knitting that is off limits. Something you make or a technique you won't do. There are some times when I look at patterns on Ravelry and I'll, they have the little keywords and I'll look in the keywords and I'll be like, no. Honestly.
And is that an absolute no or just like in this moment no?
I think it's just an in this moment no, but I really, so the Wild Knitted Animals book I showed has some intarsia in it. And I'm thinking, it's a very small amount like the animals' tummies. So I think in that instance, I would probably do some intarsia, but I don't think I would do an all-over intarsia project. Because I just love to knit and it's relaxing and I don't want it to ever feel like a chore or something I have to get through. I don't think I'd want the garment that badly. There's so many beautiful projects out there that I think would bring me joy that I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
But I love lace. I love cables. I love texture. I don't mind color work. I don't love it. But I also feel like I admire color work sweaters on other people. And I think it would have to be pretty muted color work for me. Yeah.
You do have yarns, though, to make some color work things like that vest.
Sure. Yes, the Academic by, oh goodness, it's a lack of sleep for me.
I know, yeah.
Ellie from Skein Deer Knits, who actually designed these mittens, which are the Selbu mittens.
Oh, right.
And those are those are the first mittens that I made. And I really wanted a pair of Selbu mittens. And I didn't knit this, by the way. This was a gift.
Oh, who knit that?
My friend Gail knit this for me out of cashmere. And I don't know the name of the pattern. I do know the name of the pattern. I just not off the top of my head. But anyway, so what were we talking about?
I know, it's so
anything that is off limits.
Off limits.
Yeah. And there's probably things out there that I don't even know about.
Right.
Knitting techniques.
Like entrelock. Is that how you say it?
But it almost looks like woven.
Yes.
Like ribbons of woven knitting.
That's amazing.
It looks amazing.
It looks amazing.
I don't know if that's as hard as it looks.
I have no idea.
That is my hunch about that. So
I think I think I would never, already you can see how I'm doing with my flower blanket that's crochet. Part of it's crochet, but I don't think I would knit like an Afghan or something with a bunch of squares and have to sew them together.
Right,
that would
like
just
the Battenberg.
Yeah, I would
Afghan
just be like, no.
I see those temperature blankets and I think, oh my goodness, they're so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even right now I'm knitting that, that Katniss cowl for our friend. And some of the the braids are 10 or 12 strands. And so you start it at one end, sew it around, and then end at the other end. And then you have 20 to 24 ends, braid ends, to weave in. I mean, it takes longer to weave those ends in than it does to sew the braid on. So I don't know that I'd ever make one of those again.
Oh my goodness.
Oh dear. And it's so funny because you were saying, there's no way that Natalie or anybody else would ever know how much work went into that.
Right.
Although it isn't taking that long. It's not.
No, you've really whipped through it.
Yeah.
And it took me no time to do those braids, really.
Yeah.
I just did the weaving of the braids.
Yeah, she did a lot of the braids.
Yeah.
I did one of the first braids because I just wanted to keep going, and then I just gave you the measurements and you did all the other braids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to help in some small way.
No, it's fine.
It's just hard to get anything done. I really wanted to get this done for our episode, and I'm not going to get it done.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay.
Black Cat Knitting Co. You want to read it?
Do you have a specific pattern or project idea that you've always wanted to knit, but it seems like a challenge, or that it will take too long, etc.? In other words, do you have a dream knit? So we covered that.
Yeah, similar. But thank you for that question.
Yeah.
I think what's hard for me is I have project ideas, sometimes things I want to knit. Because I think I said, if I buy souvenir yarn, I want to have a pattern that matches it already. First of all, so I'm sure I'm buying enough yarn. Sometimes I have an idea of what I want to knit with that yarn, and I cannot find the pattern. And I'm just too lazy. I do not want to figure out how to create my own pattern. So I have things that I might want to knit, but it's just too time consuming to find a pattern for it. So I just knit other things.
Well, the knits I just finished that I will show in episode 15, I could not find a pattern that had everything that I needed. So I just kind of winged it.
And what was that for?
That was a Christmas gift.
Oh, right. I forgot about that.
So I looked at every mitt pattern out there. But I ended up kind of doing my own thing.
And I did do that with my son-in-law's Dallas Cowboys beanie that I made. I couldn't really find one that I liked, and I kind of had an idea. I wanted it to look like the helmet, so I kind of created that pattern, I guess. But yeah, sometimes it frustrates me if I have an idea of something that I want in it and I can't find the right pattern. So anyway, let's see.
Oh, this is one of my favorite questions. Holly Y. As a very brand new knitter, could you speak about how you address mistakes in your knitting? Is knitting equally calming and frustrating when a knitter's skill level improves?
Yes.
I mean, you still get frustrated even after decades of experience.
Yes. So mistakes, they're going to happen no matter how long you've been knitting. I make multiple mistakes in every single project, and we've talked about this before. I usually just decide, we talk about, does it affect the structure? Is it going to mess up something later?
Right.
How easy is it to fix? Right. Can I drop down and fix it? Do I have to unknit to fix it? All those things come into play. If I can just sneakily, knit front back or something, or make one and get the right stitch count or whatever, then I will. Didn't you recently, you forgot to do a yarn over and it was an increase or something, right?
It was in this sweater that I'm knitting now.
And you, it was a little bit back, and so you figured out how to drop down and fix it.
And I just did a make one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And I honestly consult YouTube. Roxanne Richardson is great. Very pink knits. And I actually type in the search bar how to fix a column of twisted stitches, for example. And you really get some good videos.
Yeah.
So there's just so many great videos out there. So that really helps me a lot. Or I call you, or...
Yeah, I've been knitting so long, I just kind of pick it apart. The only time I really wouldn't be able to do that is something with lace. I would probably just rip the whole thing out and start over, because I can't figure out if I first of all, would you even see the mistake, really? But the way I think we both address the mistakes is, can I live with it? You know, because the thing I try not to do now is I try to decide that right away. Because if I keep knitting for 3 inches and I'm obsessing about it and it's driving me nuts, I should have just stopped when I first found the mistake.
Right. Because every stitch is just nagging you.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And you keep going
looking.
back and
Can I live with this? Can I not live with this?
Yeah.
Right. It's probably at that point just better to stop. You're never going to regret going back and fixing something.
Right. Exactly.
Ever.
Right. It's so true.
So.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had sleeves come out one longer than the other. Just on Eleanor's cardigan. I don't even know what happened.
That's so funny.
It's like a good 5 rows. I was like, okay. And it took me hours.
Yeah.
To go back and fix that.
Yeah.
But of course, I had to.
Yeah.
But I think the kind of the psychology of mistakes is super interesting. Like the process, you know, what kind of mental gymnastics do we go through when we make a mistake? Or suppose you're knitting and there's a knot in the yarn and you don't see it. And you knit it right into the fabric and then it pokes through the front. And you're like, oh, you know, what do I do? Do I knit back? Do I cut the yarn? Do I, you know, weave in the ends?
Didn't Kevin and Ray talk about this recently? And one of them, I think Ray would just leave it, and Kevin,
right?
What I do is I obsess, like, how did I make that mistake? Where did I make the mistake? What exactly did I do? Right. Like, how in the world did I do that? What was, so that's what I do, and that's what I obsess about. So, I usually try to fix them for the most part. If it's just simply less stitches, then, and if all the structure is there, I just make stitches somewhere.
Okay.
But, like, if a cable's twisted the wrong, you know, like,
right.
Yeah, I have to fix that.
You're right.
Yeah. But you'll always, I mean, part of knitting is mistakes.
Yeah, it's like the ocean. My parents always used to say, don't turn your back on the ocean. It's like, don't turn your back on your knitting.
Yeah. Well, because there's just simple human error. Like, we're not paying attention. We keep knitting. We knit too far. We stop knitting.
Right.
Or there's, like, you have to understand the designer has designed this. It's an actual object, and they have to write it in words, and then clear enough that we'll understand. They understand it, right? But clearly enough that we'll understand from this writing how to make a fabric, a garment. And there's just we're gonna misunderstand. You know, we're not gonna get it. We're gonna misread. I mean, just so many variables go into it. So. Just don't worry, make mistakes. It's like, oh, well. Actually, I just started teaching my children's knitting class again. I hadn't taught it since before COVID. And the first class I went to, I had made a mistake in something. I don't remember what now. And I brought it with me on purpose, and I let them rip the whole thing out.
Oh.
So that, because sometimes when they make mistakes, they get upset, and they obviously it's precious. You don't want to rip it out. Right. So that was one of the first lessons. It's like, go ahead, just pull it out. I'll just keep winding up the yarn. And actually, I love ripping out. I don't love it when it's I like ripping out your project.
Right.
But it's just part of it.
I've never regretted ripping out a project.
No.
And you know, if you know right off the bat it's going to be too big or too small, just stop.
Yes.
Frog back.
Yes.
Cast on again. And one of the questions, and I don't know if I wrote this one down, how many times have you cast on the same project and ripped it out? And because I'm a, newer knitter, it was the hoarfrost shawl. And I just thought with the way, so you cast on 3 stitches, and the way the I-cord edges grew and the texture, nothing looked right because it was just this little bit. And I really learned, just trust the pattern. Keep going. Because I hadn't done anything wrong, but I literally cast that on like 9 times.
Wow. Because you thought you were doing something wrong.
Yeah. I cast on the balloon sweater like 5 times, and then I gave up. I was like, I'm just not there. But now after doing the Dingley Dell, I know how to make increases on the right and the wrong side every row. And so that's, that doesn't scare me anymore.
Yeah.
So...
What was that question?
I got off track.
Oh, okay.
About how many times you've cast on the same project.
A few times, definitely. Yeah. Absolutely a few times, no question. Even just recently, some of the hats I made. Yep, definitely.
Because you made a mistake?
Made a mistake. Thought they were too small. Knitted too tightly. Because one thing I realized about the Monster Cables beanie is it runs small anyway. There's only one size. I'm a tight knitter. And so the first one I made, also the yarn had too much twist in it. I think from being wound, it was like too twisty. And so it had less flexibility. It wasn't as stretchy. And that's one of those things I should have just known. I knew it was too tight. I knew it was too small. And I just knitted the whole thing. But I didn't know this woman I was giving it to. I didn't know if she had a smaller head, it would be fine. But I ended up ripping it out. And then I tried casting on, because the next size needle is a 17. There's nothing in between.
Right.
That's a huge difference.
That's a big difference.
Then it just was way too big. But what I realized is just use a 15 and just consciously knit looser. And then the rest of them, they're fine. You know. But, yeah, so those, but these silly hats, I had to cast the first one on multiple times, definitely. Many times.
And if you're doing a long cast on, count your stitches over and over and over again before you start knitting.
Start the first row.
It is a bummer when you have the wrong number of stitches.
Yeah.
And if you, if it's 200 or something stitches, use stitch markers to count 50 or 20 even.
Yes.
So that you don't have to go back and keep counting the same.
If you lose count or whatever. Exactly.
So.
Yeah, that's definitely the one time I don't count. I totally regret it because I get around like usually ribbing and I'm not ending on the correct stitch. Ugh, it's so annoying.
Marianne.
Yeah, this is the last actual member one that we wrote down who the member was. Marianne would love to know how much you knit each day. Also, what podcasts do you enjoy?
There you go.
Depends on the day. I mean, some days I don't knit at all, but definitely over the holidays. I think I said that before the holidays. Once Christmas hits, Christmas Eve, I think it was Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, I am just going to knit nonstop. And that's what I did all the way up until New Year's and even into the New Year because we had pre-recorded episode 14.
Literally how many hours a day?
On an average day?
All you did was eat and sleep and knit.
Yeah. I mean, it could be anywhere from 4 hours to 8 hours. Today I've kind of knit a lot, but now that we're starting to record, I'm going to have to be editing. So sometimes there's days go by I don't knit at all. So I'm trying to get more of a routine. I love how you wake up early. So before the day even starts, you knit. You start by knitting.
Well, someone asked me
a great idea.
Asked us where our favorite place to knit was. I said in bed.
Yeah. That's a great idea.
My knitting time is really just mornings. If my husband gets up with the dog, I have a little bit of knitting time. And then sometimes I'll stand at the kitchen counter and knit, but rarely. And then a little bit, I really don't knit too much before bed. I've been so tired just because we're getting up so early with the dog that I'm just like, my head hits the pillow and I'm out. But morning and evenings. I'm just so busy during the day and doing what, I have no idea, but just the cooking and the cleaning and the chores and the everything just eats up my day. I have this theory. It's just because my husband, works full time, has, I was going to say several jobs, but he's self-employed, but anyway. And my dad,
several clients,
yeah. That I'm really the only person in my house who does chores and, does the shopping and does the cooking and the cleaning and the laundry and everything. So my theory is that you have more helping hands in your house, although you have more mess, probably, but you have more helping hands because your mom, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my mom, now it's like we kind of have this system. George and I do most of the cooking. I do most of the cooking during the week. George does most of the cooking on the weekend. And then my mom empties the dishwasher. And if there's a sink full of dishes, she'll do the dishes. That's kind of her chore.
That's nice.
Then my daughter takes the trash out and brings the trash bins back in. And we do have someone who cleans the house every 2 weeks. So in between, I am the neatnik, though. Like, everybody else would just basically leave the clutter everywhere, leave everything everywhere, and I'm the person who wants everything put away.
Yeah, like in your house, like you and George have your space. Your mom has her space that she keeps clean.
Right.
Elena has her space that she keeps clean.
But you're responsible for the entire house.
I think the only room that stays tidy is my husband's office. So I don't ever, I vacuum and whatever in there, but Yeah, all the other rooms are mine. So I don't do anything outside except for my garden. I'm like, okay, the outside is not my domain. So anyway.
I'm trying to have a different schedule now, though, because in the whole last year when we were doing the channel, I would do these marathon editing. And I was also slower at editing. And I would just not do anything else. I would just edit for 48 hours.
Right. And then I'd check in with her and I'd be like, what?
I know.
You're still editing? Oh,
she always felt bad. But anyway, so what I really want to do in my perfect world, like this morning, I got up early. I went to the gym, took a 7 a.m. class, and then after the class, took a shower. Then I sat in the cafe and I knitted for a few hours. And you sat down and joined me after your class.
I did, for about half an hour, which was nice. And then, I mean, I have to rush home and deal with the dog, and I had groceries. And
And then I went home and finished sewing on a braid on that project. And then I got ready for the video shoot. And then I came here. And so I get to knit. Sometimes the only time I get to knit is when we're shooting, when we're filming.
I know.
Which is
so
funny.
Nice.
Yeah. And then after this, I have rehearsal tonight. So I do... like, especially now, we're not preparing for a concert right now. When we're preparing for a concert, everything's memorized. We're just standing and singing the whole time. But when we're learning notes, while everybody else is learning their part, I can knit. So I always bring my knitting.
Oh, that's nice.
Now I bring my knitting.
And my husband pretty much drives everywhere, so I do knit in the car. But
someone wrote that in a comment on YouTube, I think. I don't think I could knit in the car. Yeah,
I can. I mean, we're never driving for more than an hour, so I knit in the car.
And I wish I could knit in the car, but now my husband isn't allowed to drive because of the epilepsy. So, oh well, it's fine.
So I think just grabbing those, even if it's a row or two, it's still, still progress. So just.
And if we don't eat dinner too late, we like to. Right now, we're binge watching the original Star Trek series.
Oh.
It's so funny. The sets are just so basic; it's hysterical. But so when we sit down to watch that, I'll knit for an hour or something. Hour or two, depending on how late we eat. But.
You know what I have been watching, and I'll mention in episode 15, but is All Creatures Great and Small. The third season
is the third one out,
and the knitwear. Even the dirty farmers who are mucking the pigs are wearing beautiful knitwear. I'm like, is this realistic?
Amazing.
But anyway, beautiful knitwear on that show.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, but I'm not binging it. I'm rationing it because I want it to last. So,
yeah, that's a great little show.
Yeah.
And what podcast do you enjoy?
Oh, well, how much time have you got? Let's see. Wool Needles Hands, Amy Palco from The Meaningful Stitch. I love Knitting Traditions, Inga, Rebecca from the Crayabea podcast. I like Ellie from Skandir Knits, Fruity Knitting. And I meant to mention that Fruity Knitting has Andrea does lots of fitting, custom tailoring. So, and they also have a lot of tutorials on their website. So go check out freddyknitting.com. I love Norman from Nimble Needles. I like Roxanne Richardson. I kind of like different podcasts for different things. I love Arne and Carlos. I could listen to them. Today, their video was all their different shirts. So they just went into their closet, pulled out these shirts, talked about the fabric and the design and the manufacturer and where they bought them. And
so fun.
Honestly, I listened to that while I did the dishes or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I have lots of favorite podcasts. So, and I know I'm forgetting some.
Yeah, I don't really watch that many.
Yeah. I listen. I do a lot of listening. So if I'm in the car and I'm driving alone,
I think my house is just so distracting. And my husband's working from home. There's no private space. Oh, during COVID, I watched a lot. But we still had our own room. So now I can't. So my favorites have always been Fruity Knitting, Arne and Carlos. I love when I can watch Kristen Bullenvine every once in a while.
I forgot Kristen.
The Knitting Posse, Kevin and Ray. Those I definitely
Needles at the Ready.
Yeah, just they're not called Kevin and Ray. Sorry.
The Knitting Posse.
Yes. So I can throw those in and do something else, but my whole family doesn't want to listen to it.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't like if I'm like watching the grandkids, having my earphones in because then I can't hear them. So yeah, but definitely give us your recommendations.
I also like I'll Knit If I Want To, Andrea Mowry. It's every Friday. Yeah. I know that I have a long list.
So many.
I'm forgetting
so many.
So yeah. Kate from the Last Homely House.
Yeah, one thing we realized when we did these Ask Us Anything questions is a lot of the questions we've answered in our previous videos. So if you like to binge, go back to episode 1, start back at the beginning, and watch the mini-sodes, watch the episodes, and
where we talk about how we met and how we started the podcast.
And also you'll hear all of her favorite podcasts, because you talk about them all the time, which is great. Yeah.
All right. Let's do some of the favorites right off the bat so that we cover those for sure.
Go for it.
So favorite yarns. And I kind of answered this question today on a comment on some video. And I said, Kim's favorite yarn is the yarn she's knitting with.
Yes.
Except for maybe this yarn.
Yeah. I mean, I like it though. I like it for what it is. You know, I wouldn't wear it, but I love it's perfect for the baby blanket. And because Jonna asked me too, so she could answer the comment. So I haven't really found a yarn that I disliked knitting with. But favorite yarn, it's.
How about the Clinton Hill Cashmere? How was knitting with that?
It's great. It's a yarn. I mean, there's so many beautiful yarns.
There are.
It's very hard to compare one to another. Like I said, I haven't really found one that I absolutely disliked knitting with. Thank goodness. That would drive me nuts. I have to say, I knitted these 2 matching little cotton dresses once for a friend of mine, because for her older granddaughter and her littler new granddaughter. And it was 100% cotton. What brand yarn was that? Do you remember? Was that Knitting for Olive?
Oh, was it?
I don't remember. Maybe not. I don't remember. But 100% cotton.
I think the pattern may have been Knitting for Olive.
Organic cotton. And that was hard to knit with just because there's absolutely no stretch in it. And it was tiny. It was little tiny stitches. Those are pretty. Those are pretty little dresses. Wonder if I have a picture of those. I don't know. But recently I did all those Monster Beanie cables. Monster cables beanies.
I know.
And I knitting with really bulky yarn with big huge needles is not my favorite thing. But it's not about the yarn itself. It's really just about the gauge. It's not. It's so much. My hands were so sore. Somebody asked that in a comment. My hands were so sore and tired after knitting those. But I did knit 24. So.
Oh my goodness.
But I don't think I have a favorite yarn. I love so many yarns. Yeah. What about you?
And so this makes me think of, well, what do you mean by favorite? You know, because I could say I love Rauma Phenol Garn because it's such a great value. And I love that it's almost indestructible. I love that it comes in a gazillion colors. And I love how affordable it is. I like that about Bichet Bouche, too. I like that it's very affordable. I like that it's woolly wool. Comes in gorgeous colors. I like the story behind it, you know, how it's grown, how it's spun and manufactured and dyed. And I have to say maybe my favorite luxury yarn would be Mayak, because I would definitely consider that a luxury yarn. But it's luxurious, but it's also, you know, it doesn't pill. So I feel like, you know, that's one thing I really like about it. Favorite yarn. Yeah, I mean, I have to say maybe, you know, some of the Norwegian woolly wools. I also feel like Sandnes does such a fabulous job for a factory yarn that's mass produced. It's good quality. It's a great price point. It comes in beautiful colors. It's consistent. Yeah, I have nothing bad to say about Sandnes. So for me, favorite would be a combination of how it wears, how much it costs, how available it is. You know. Yeah,
because now that I'm thinking, like if I think back to my Orkney,
right.
I love knitting with the Rowan Felted Tweed. I love how the colors go together. I just loved it. Very easy to knit with. I love wearing it. It seems like it would be itchy, but it's not.
No.
I was thinking this is the C2 sweater by Helga E. Sayer, and I knitted it in Julie Asseline, held with both a yarn and then a mohair of hers. In the color Joyful, which I love. And it was a dream to knit, and it's a dream to wear. I love it so much. And the Prosper yarn I just knit that tweed tee in was divine to knit with. I loved it. I just knitted the 2 Oslo hats in Pasquale.
Oh, Tibetan.
Beautiful
yarn.
Oh, I mean, there's just so many amazing yarns.
There are.
And the Malabrigos that I knitted the hats in, most of them in. It's beautiful. I mean,
the colors are amazing.
The colors, you can really see the cables. It's soft. It's just amazing yarn. It is. But yeah, there's so many. It's just hard to say.
I do get disappointed if something pills really badly.
Yeah.
You know, and it continues to pill. I do get kind of disappointed. So.
Yeah, I have sweaters that I made this black cardigan, which doesn't show up really on camera, so I never ever wear it. I just wanted a basic black cardigan.
Right.
And that was one where the button band and the bind off and everything was just a chore. I did not enjoy knitting that, but I wasn't going to give up. So no, I don't give up. It was just a different way. I had never done it before. It was just very it was hard to do. It was a chore. Tiny, tiny needles, tiny stitches, black yarn. Ugh. But I love the sweater, but it pills like crazy. So I often don't wear it.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to glean it all the time.
Right.
So, anyway.
Gleaning is one of those processes that I feel like you start at one part of the sweater, and then by the time you get to that part of the sweater again, you're like, oh, it needs to be cleaned again.
Yes.
I mean, it's really like, where do you stop with the gleaning? You know? It has to just be good enough.
Yeah, exactly.
So, favorite designers?
Again, there's just so many.
Yeah.
Designers I would wear, or designers?
No, I think designers that you would wear. They're patterns that you gravitate towards.
I don't know. I mean, I have so many in my
I know.
queue.
You kind of just, you go all over the place.
I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I love all of Petite Knit, but I would knit them in a bright color or something like, they're all, I'm so fascinated and amazed by the skill to write a pattern.
I know.
I just think they're all my favorite designers because I just think and I've said this before, people see my knitwear that I knit and they're like, oh, you're so talented. No. I'm just following instructions.
Right.
Like, it would be like, it's like paint by numbers. And someone would be like, oh, you're so talented. Right. No, I picked the color and put it in the...
Right.
It's the designer that's so talented. How do they come up with that? When we were knitting Isabel Kramer's shoulder, I did 2 of hers, completely different shoulder construction, and both of them just...
Genius.
Absolutely amazing. And they fit like a dream.
Yeah.
Designers just amaze me. So they're all my favorites. I love you, designers.
Oh, and I would have to say to Andrea D, again, if you're having trouble, knit an Isabel Kramer pattern for a fit, right? Because she has these little details where she'll put like a few stitches here just to take a little tuck, you know, and a little dart here, and you wonder.
And they're seamless. That's what's amazing.
Right.
Is they're seamless top down.
Right.
Typically.
And they almost look seamed.
They do.
And very well constructed.
The details are amazing. But, I mean, really the key is gauge swatch. I know you don't like to do it, and I didn't do it for many, many years, but I was knitting baby stuff. I would just knit it a size too big because they're going to grow into it. If it's too big, they can roll up the sleeves, and then, But knitting for myself, I realized I really, now I will not knit something other than a hat without gauge swatching. And just making sure that it fits me, and knitting and measuring the garment. Andrea always says that from Fruity Knitting. Measure the garment while you're knitting and make sure it's knitting up to the size you want it to be.
Right.
Try it on. That's great with top down. You can try it on.
And this leads me to another question. How do you two knit? Loose, on gauge, or tight? I absolutely must gauge swatch because I nearly always have to go down 2 needle sizes.
Oh, wow.
So I'm pretty much an on gauge knitter. And so that is another reason I don't gauge swatch, is I often just get gauge with the recommended needles.
But every designer, it's based on designer's gauges. So that's interesting because every designer has a different gauge.
I don't know. I'm just lucky that way. And if I see something that's really off, like on the berets, I was like, there is no way I'm going to get 17 stitches over 4 inches. So I usually knit with the recommended needles or I go down. I never go up, which is opposite of you.
Yes. I'm a very tight knitter. Not very tight. My stitches move easily on my needle. Okay. But I'm a tight knitter, and so I often have to go up 1 or 2 needle sizes, really for the most part. And now I've gotten more comfortable with, if I like that fabric that gauge makes, even if it's the wrong gauge, then I'll recalculate the sweater and make a different size or something like that.
I'm always asking you, do you like the fabric?
Yes, and I never really thought about it before because, I just knit. I just would knit. So I've learned so much from this woman. I've learned so much from you. No, I'm serious.
Thank you.
It's amazing. You're so adventurous. You really are thoughtful. You're the knitting philosopher, as I've always said. I'm just a rule follower. So I just pick up the pattern. I do what it says. And so
you're fearless.
I'm learning to be more adventurous in like modifying patterns and thinking, and I'm just more thoughtful. So anyway.
So my favorite designer is Petite Knit, for sure.
Yeah.
I think for things that I would wear, that I want to knit, I love the color she chooses. I love her aesthetic. I love everything from the bags to the scarves to the sweaters to the kids stuff. I just love her things. And I think another designer with a similar aesthetic is my favorite thing is knitwear. So I love those patterns, and I have made the cardigan number 7, which I love. I did add short rows to that one. So, Anne Wenzel, I just love everything she designs. But her aesthetic is so oversized that I'm a little intimidated. And often her garments call for, 5 yarns held together. So that's it's a cost thing for me. But, that is... I definitely want to make an Anne Wenzel sweater. Maybe it's the bedroom blue. Maybe I just start there, That's pretty easy color work. It's, holding 1 yarn. So
I love the spot sweater.
Oh,
it's gorgeous.
She is amazing. She used to be in the ready-to-wear business, She was like a clothing designer. So my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely amazing.
So,
favorite item to knit. Do you have a favorite item to knit?
I would have to say hats and socks, just because I love the round and round.
But you haven't knit socks in so long.
I haven't. But that is one thing I like about the Oslo hat, is it's like a giant sock without ribbing. So it's just around and around and around. So I like around and around.
And I don't, actually. I'm happy I did the Oslo hats, but they were really... it's boring. It's just... You're right. There's not one purl stitch in the whole hat.
No.
No. I want to knit something interesting, complicated. If every row is different, I think that's why I love knitting this Katniss cowl so much, because every single row was written out, because every single row...
The pattern is 18 pages long.
Yes. With not many repeats. A little repeat, but... No, I like complicated, interesting, something to keep me, I don't know, a stockinette is not my thing.
I love knitting accessories. It's funny, I love knitting accessories, but I don't necessarily wear a lot of shawls. But I like the little things. I like the mittens and the hats and the baby hats and the little Sophie scarf and my little bandana. I don't know, cute little things. I like stuffed animals.
I like knitting them for other people, and I like knitting them once, but I don't want to knit them again.
And I want to knit sweaters for myself.
Yeah.
So.
Favorite patterns?
Well, everyone knows I like the Oslo hat. I really like the ranunculus, and I know some people said, you can't say ranunculus. I'm just going to say that it's size inclusive.
Someone said you can't say ranunculus?
Yeah, because they were like, we already know. But
it's so funny.
It's a really beautiful sweater, and it's a quick knit, so it's great for gifts. But I have to say, the sweater I grab all the time is my no frills, my petite knit. And that's like my desert island pattern. If I had to just choose one pattern, it would probably be from Petite Knit. And it would be in blue, and I could just knit it over and over and over again. So
that's funny.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite pattern?
No. I buy all my favorite patterns and I knit them, and I typically don't knit them twice.
Right. And I could knit the same sweater like 9 times. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorite sweaters I ever knit, I did knit 7 times, and that was the 7 hide-and-seek sweaters for my grandchildren, and I had fun knitting every single one of them because they were all different sizes, and they were all different colors, and that was really, really fun, but it definitely is disappointing because they grew out of them way too fast.
Right.
So that was a bit of a bummer.
Well, did you carry the yarn up for the stripes?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know how much of yarn you could recycle from those, but
yeah,
maybe you can make them all hats out of their hide and seek sweaters.
Yeah, I'm hoping they'll hand them down. I mean, I don't mind if they hand them down to relatives, people who will appreciate it. Sometimes we'll hand things to people and say, can you, use it, wear it, and then, if you just don't give it away, give it back to us. Don't just throw it away or put it in a clothing bin, We've done that before. But, okay, favorite yarn weight?
I would have to say DK, and I mean by DK,
I agree.
Hold a fingering with a mohair, that kind of thing, or a DK weight.
I agree.
I like working, like size 4 needles are sort of my, it's funny, like you notice that every pair of size 4 needles is in use.
And your size 4 is my size 5, and that's what I'm using right now. Same thing. I really like that.
So these are size 8s, which is not something I normally knit on. I'm enjoying it, but I think size 4s are kind of my
Although this blanket's taking forever, and my husband said the other day, are you wishing now you had chosen a different pattern, a different yarn, something heavier and thicker? And yeah, but it's going to be so beautiful when it's done, and they're going to appreciate it. So, but yeah, definitely DK.
Okay.
Love that. Fibers. Well, you already said yak, right? Was that in this that you said that, or was that in your?
I love some yak yarn, yak sock yarn. But I mean, I think just woolly wool in general. Yeah. Yeah, I just love wool. Wool. I mean, I'll have wool combined with other things. Wool with cotton. Wool with I like wool combined because then there's something about wool that gives it that bounciness, that flexibility. I love it. So wool is definitely my favorite fiber. And then, mix it with other things, definitely. Favorite place to get help? Honestly, my first place to get help is YouTube. Just because then I don't have to bother anybody. But then if it's something specific and I know someone will know, like Claudia will know, or you will know, or Karen and Felicia will know, I'll ask a friend. So phone a friend. So YouTube, phone a friend. I rarely consult books, but if it's something specific that I know will be in that Vogue knitting book, I will look at a book. Yeah. But I think I get a lot of stuff off the internet. Yeah, same for me. I'll ask you a lot of times first, and then I don't really like searching on YouTube. The reason I don't is because then I get obsessed with, I want to find a video where they hold the yarn the way I hold the yarn. Okay. I don't know. So I'll ask you, and she'll send me a video. Right. I have a whole library. I save the videos, so I have a whole library of, I need to add short rows to this sweater, or I need to fix a column of twisted stitches, or whatever it is. Yeah. And then I'll go in to pick up every stitch and ask Karen. Karen knows everything. Yeah, she really does. She really does. So those are, yeah. Favorite knitting tip? And I was reminded about this by a viewer, but I remember, and you didn't do this, but after struggling with a tubular cast on circular needles, I switched to a straight needle. So tubular cast on a straight needle is one of my favorite tips. Also, that little trick about moving your stitch marker over one stitch for every round that you knit. Because I struggle a little bit with keeping track of my rounds. the weave and Steven, weaving in ends as you go. That's important. Also, this was a biggie. I like Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off, but do it the Coco Knits way, which is you go down several needle sizes so that it is not flaring and flopping around. Mm-hmm. So that's a biggie. And then going up a needle size for color work.
There's so many
Not
tips.
binding off too tightly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, what are yours?
Knitting tips. I mean, one of them you said, trust the pattern. Mm-hmm. Just first thing, just do what it says. Mm-hmm. And I'll talk about this in episode 15. But Jonna has talked about the Oslo hat many, many times and how people get confused. And here I've heard her talk about it many times. I've looked at her hats. I've watched her knit them. Mm-hmm. And I didn't get it until I knit my first Oslo hat in the last couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. And I tried to understand what was happening and I could not visualize it. I couldn't picture it. And I kept hearing your voice in my head, just trust the pattern, just trust the pattern. And I might have even texted you. Mm-hmm. And now I finally get it. Mm-hmm. I just had to get some experiential learning going on there.
Right.
And now I get it and I understand, but truly the pattern is written correctly. Mm-hmm. How many projects are on Ravelry?
I know. Thousands.
It's correct. There's no errata. Mm-hmm. It just do what it says. Mm-hmm. It does. Because what I finally realized, I'm going to talk about it in episode 15. Anyway, what I finally realized is you start knitting the Oslo hat, right side out. Mm-hmm. Eventually, after you finish the brim and knit a couple more rows, you turn it and do one, German short row, whatever, to close up the hole. Mm-hmm. And then you've essentially then flipped it, and now you're knitting it inside out, but it's the new outside.
Right. Your wrong side becomes your right side.
That's how to say it.
Yeah.
Yes. Your wrong side becomes your right side. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't understand it, but where's the instruction that says to flip it back? Right. But you don't. And so now I finally get it. I finally get it.
Right.
So.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And if she had said, your right side becomes your wrong side or your wrong side becomes your right side, then that would have made a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, now I get it. Yeah. So trust the pattern. Mm-hmm. So anyway, unless you're test knitting.
Right. Right. Then ask questions.
The purpose of that is to find mistakes. So I assume there are human error, but.
Favorite color of yarn?
I think you asked me recently if I had a least favorite color,
I
right?
think you said yellow.
Yellow. I probably wouldn't knit with yellow. Mm-hmm. Although I did.
Because you wouldn't wear yellow.
Right. I knit a baby blanket for my grandson that was green, yellow, and white. And that's because he had like a jungle theme. Mm-hmm. It was pale yellow. But favorite color of yarn? I don't know. I like all the colors.
I answered.
I like all the colors.
Yeah. She likes, her favorite color is the one she's knitting with.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
And for me, I'm so boring. It's a wonder we have viewers. Thankfully, you're not this way, but any neutral and then blue.
Yeah.
I'd be perfectly happy. So some of these cubbies sit untouched. The purples and the reds. It's not that I don't love purple and red. It's just, I think maybe I wonder how I would fit it into my wardrobe. So anyway. Yeah.
Well, that's another thing. I was thinking about that driving here today. You actually have a wardrobe that goes with your knitwear. I just wear my knitwear with jeans. I did buy a few skirts a couple years, like last year, 2 years ago, and I honestly haven't worn them that much. I don't go anywhere where I wear a skirt. I just am not a skirt person or a dress person. So I just wear my knitwear with jeans or pants. So, I don't need, they go with everything.
Right.
But anyway. Alrighty. What about the knitting process drives you? The therapeutic repetition, the slow process of making, which leads to a higher appreciation of the finished item? Are you more drawn toward a project that requires focus or a more mindless knit? I mean, we talked about some of those things. Yeah. I mean, a lot of those things, right?
Yeah. I mean, I love the therapeutic repetition. When I first started knitting, I dropped out of grad school. My dad was diagnosed with cancer. Things were just hard. Life was hard. And I loved that knitting. And I tell people this, it was difficult enough for me that it just prevented me from ruminating on, circumstances, but it wasn't so difficult that it was frustrating. So it was really this awesome place where it required enough focus that I wasn't worrying or, stressing or whatever. But now I find that I need a little bit more to keep my brain busy. So, I don't mind something that I'm totally absorbed in, like the Zoria right now. It's like when I'm knitting that, I am completely absorbed in the lace pattern and really unable to think about anything else. Like the house could burn down around me, I wouldn't even notice. But I also love the therapeutic, repetitive kind of things, like the Oslo hat, or like a pair of socks, or the body of a sweater round and round.
Yeah, when I get to that part, I just want to be done. Like, I just want to knit it as fast as possible and be done with the boring part.
Oh, funny. Yeah, I don't mind. In fact, I often joke that I could knit a sweater. I could rip out what I knit at night and start again in the morning and just knit the same thing with the same yarn. I know. I'm one of those people who watches, like, favorite movies, like, 100 times.
Oh, I do that.
Do you? Okay. I'm a creature of habit, I realized.
And I've said I'm a project knitter, but I also love the process. I mean, I love seeing the fabric as it's being created row by row, stitch by stitch. We were in the gym today, and this dad came in with these 2 little boys, and the little boys immediately noticed that we were knitting, and they came over and said something. And I was again reminded that the magic of taking a ball of string, basically, and 2 sticks, and creating something, an actual garment. I just find it so amazingly fascinating. I just love everything about it. I love how collars are created and yokes and dividing for the sleeve. I just think it's so amazing. It fascinates me. So yeah, that's very therapeutic to me. And I'm just filled with amazement every time I knit.
It was cute. They said, I guess maybe the dad said, do you know what they're knitting? Do you know what they're doing? And they said something like, yeah, they're knitting, but we've never seen it. We've only seen it on TV. Not in real life. So it was cute.
It was really cute.
Yeah, they were really interested. I told them, I think there's a statistic that there are more male knitters in the world than golfers. They were like, well, we golf. So anyway. Yeah. I think in the U.S. there's a stigma that only girls knit.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Not true.
Not true. So how do you maintain your pattern library? I'm curious about this one. I use Ravelry, the short answer.
Oh, me too, definitely.
Okay.
I do, but I like to print them, so I do have printed patterns. My goal is to always have them in a binder, but they're not. They're just in this bin, and someday I'll get to organizing them. But I know where I always put them in this one bin, and obviously the originals are in Ravelry at this point. Okay. Or most of them are downloads now, so you can always search in your email, search for your download. I don't really buy books of patterns anymore. But if I do have some books, so they're all on a shelf, but yeah.
Yeah, and I love how nowadays when you buy a book, you can import those patterns into your Ravelry library.
You can?
So maybe you have the digital versions, it comes sometimes with a code, so you can download the digital versions, but sometimes it's just enough to have that book's patterns be in your library so that you remember, oh, I have that book, I can go look up that pattern.
Yes, that's true. That makes sense.
Yeah, I think back when I used to print out patterns, I have like a accordion file folder, and I would put accessories and sweaters and baby things, and I would file them in this accordion folder. So I still have that, but I really don't print out patterns too often. So
yeah.
This is a good one, and you know what my answer is to this, but I don't know maybe what your answer is going to be. What knit project did you dislike making or absolutely hated the pattern and the yarn?
I shared this once, and I don't remember what the name of the pattern is now, but I've now, since years ago, well, when did I do that? When I started knitting ranunculus, because I used the yarn. Actually, no. When I knit myself my first garment, it actually wasn't the kaleidoscope sweater. I knit a t-shirt first.
Right.
The Edie t-shirt by Isabel Kramer. And I had, years ago, bought this very lacy, romantic cardigan pattern, all over lace, kind of oversized, very drapey, lace weight yarn.
Right.
Lace weight yarn, people.
Right.
And
held single.
Held single. And I did start it, and I knit for days, and it still wasn't even an inch. I kid you not. And it's lace, so you can't even really see what it looks like. Mm-hmm. I can do the stitches, but it's a beautiful pattern. I was going to knit it for one of my daughters. It's like a taupe neutral. It would have been beautiful, and it sat in my closet for years. And I finally, when I decided I wanted to knit myself that t-shirt, since that's my first garment, I want to go buy yarn. I didn't even know what I wanted, so I ripped that out and used that yarn. I've since, because I had so much of it. It was an oversized lace weight. It was beautiful yarn. What was it? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Oh, it was beautiful yarn. I can't remember. I think it was a Canadian. Anyway, gorgeous yarn. And I have knit a few ranunculus holding it with mohair for my daughters. I've definitely used it in a bunch of different projects as like a second yarn to hold together. But it's a beautiful pattern, but it just wasn't for me at that time. And I hated knitting it. What about you?
And I think this goes under my biggest knitting fail also. It's related.
The Goldwing?
The Goldwing. By Jennifer Steingass. And it's a beautiful sweater. And the thing I love about it the most, two things, is the cast on edge is the finished edge.
That's my Meadow Moon. Same thing. Love it.
So there's no ribbing at the neckline. And I also love how your main color, which was ivory for me, becomes your contrast color as you knit.
Yes.
So it starts out mostly cream and a little bit of gold, and then the body of the sweater is knit in gold. So I love that transition from main color to contrast color. That said, you had to catch your floats all over the place. And so if you catch your float in one row, then the next row, be sure not to catch your float in that same place, in that same stitch. So there was a lot of keeping track of where I had caught my floats. Also, I did not go up a needle size for the color work. And I tried it on. I had knit the whole body. I had actually, I think, even knit a sleeve.
Oh my goodness.
And it was too tight in my shoulders, which I blame on swimming. My parents always told me I had broad shoulders. I don't know if that's true, but it did not fit. And there was just, everyone was like, well, you can block it. But you know, if you aggressively block color work, you're going to get some weird funky holes and stitches that are longer than other stitches.
And if you block it this way, it goes shorter this way. It has to go somewhere.
I didn't like my bind off. I didn't like the ribbing at the bottom of the sweater. I don't know if it was too long, too much ribbing. And honestly, I kind of went through this gold phase that I grew out of, and I didn't really love the color combo anymore. I loved the yarn. So it was John Urban Knit by Numbers. I, like I said, I went through this gold phase, and I think I liked it when I cast it on, and then as it grew, I just like, this is just not my color. I'm just not going to wear this, It was one of those things that maybe I loved the sample, and then I just was like, I'm not going to wear this sweater. So,
but she never even took a picture.
I didn't.
She ripped that. Didn't even sit in the closet. You ripped that darn thing out.
I did
So fast.
I did. I mean, it was an entire sweater.
It never became a UFO.
I was just so upset that I didn't even take a picture of it. I just didn't want any memories. So I can't say I loved the pattern. I just didn't love how long the floats were, and catching all those floats and having to keep track of where I caught them on the different rows. You know that I think it was Arn and Carlos. I was listening to maybe their 24 knitting tips of Christmas. And for me, sometimes I get a really long stitch when I'm doing color work. Like my V is really elongated. And they had a remedy for that. And I believe it was like on the next round, pick up the bar along with your stitch and we'll kind of tighten up.
Yes, I've heard them say that.
Yeah, tighten up that elongated stitch. And that for me is important because I do get those long stitches and I don't like them. I feel like your color work tension is always very even. You don't have these long stitches.
I don't know. I do.
Do you?
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I know.
They just get lost in the color work.
It's not anything that someone's going to see.
Or I'll pull the extra in and ease it into the stitches nearby if I really see one that's too long.
Too long.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder why that. So that does make me wonder, why does that happen? There's something about color work. So I can't do color work perfectly, therefore I'm off of color work. And I know that that's a bad attitude. My dad has the same attitude. It's like he could never take the perfect picture. He was an amateur photographer. Never could take the perfect picture, so he just stopped taking pictures. And I won't let that happen, but because I can't knit color work with perfect tension, I'm like, it's just not my thing.
Oh, but you do it really close to perfect. So
I don't know.
Please don't give up.
I think when we're knitting, we're like, we're staring at our, we're getting out a magnifying glass and
micro level.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway. Yeah. My goodness.
What was the question? I don't even remember.
What project
biggest knitting fail?
Oh, the biggest knitting fail.
Or same thing.
Yeah, do you have one?
Oh, I told you that one, that cardigan. Yeah, that lacy cardigan.
Oh, the lacy cardigan.
Yeah, lacy cardigan.
Okay. Yeah.
We're really almost done. Actually, someone asked that. Can you give some tips on how to keep
the
tension right when working with several colors? I recently knit colorwork socks and it was hard to keep floats loose enough. Some people knit socks inside out, right? That helps. And definitely go up a needle size, which we've already said for colorwork. Also, as you're knitting, the stitches you've already knit, stretch them out on your needle, and that pulls the floats longer. And this is one reason I love the drawing sweater. I love it. I love how it looks, but I have heard there are some massive long floats.
Yeah.
I thought it was intarsia, just from how it looks.
Right. I thought it was intarsia too.
But it's not. It's stranded colorwork.
And honestly, this whole catching floats things, you cannot catch your floats.
Right.
You cannot catch your floats.
Right.
I give you permission to not catch your floats. If you want to catch your floats every other stitch, fine. If you want to catch them every 5, fine. If you don't want to catch them at all, don't catch them
every
at all.
10 stitches.
Just be careful when you put it on that you don't put your
finger through it.
Finger through it. So
exactly.
Casey from Young Folk Knits. Oh, I forgot to mention her. She's one of the podcasts I watch. She has an episode on the things she does that are not that are frowned upon in the knitting world. So
yeah, I love her title though. How does she phrase it? She says things you're not supposed to do, or knitting. I don't know, knitting no-nos. What does she
knitting
say?
no-nos.
Something like that. Yeah, it's a funny title. I love that. We always try to think of funny titles for ours. We never can.
Yeah. So I was going to suggest change up your needles. So with socks especially, if you're using small circulars, you are going to have trouble with floats, I think.
Yeah.
I think you're going to be able to really stretch those stitches out better on a magic loop. That said, I tried to make some colorwork socks with magic loop, and that gap at the ends, between the needles.
Where you're carrying your strands.
Where you're carrying your strands. I had trouble with that, making them loose enough. That was hard for me. Colorwork socks. We made that one pair of colorwork socks where I completely goofed up the colorwork pattern, but I still wear them. They don't match. But I'm proud of them.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
I did a good job.
It's a good structural sock. It was just the colorwork was messed up.
I love the yarn.
Yeah.
I think colorwork socks and colorwork sleeves, be careful. So I would change up, use DPNs, use magic loop, use 2 circulars if you're using small circulars,
But definitely, when you're knitting something normal, you can let your stitches get all bunched up. My stitches stay really bunched up really close.
Right.
But when you're knitting colorwork, you really have to stretch those stitches out so that your strands are, pulled out.
And also, we're both continental knitters, and so I will hold the yarn over different fingers. So think about how you're tensioning the yarn. Think about yarn dominance. Even though Arne Carla say that there's no such thing, there really is a difference. Which yarn you hold farthest to the left. Also, try not tensioning your yarn at all. Try not tensioning it. Try throwing with one hand and picking with the other hand. So I would just say there are these rings also with little channels.
Right, so you can put multiple colors.
Can put multiple colors, and it keeps them separate, so you can pick up the yarn that you want. I think they really only work for continental knitters. Maybe a thrower wouldn't use that. But I would just suggest not tensioning your yarn at all, dropping it completely. So I like that idea.
Yeah.
Anyway.
There's really no right or wrong way, as long as your stitches are formed correctly.
Right.
And, you know, you're basically anything knitting is, you find what works best for you.
And, you know, with the floats sagging on the inside, they may sag on the inside when the sock isn't on your foot, but maybe when it's on your foot and your leg.
Right, because it has a negative ease.
Right. The floats aren't sagging, so.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, like Arna Carlos would say, if you can't see it, don't worry about it.
Yeah, better to have it sag than to not sag.
Yeah, but I know what it's like to not be able to get a sock over your heel. Also, the different kinds of heel construction. Maybe a heel flap is going to be better for you in a color work situation because you're not working color work on the heel flap.
Right.
But if you were doing like a fish lips conceal or short row heel and you're working color work on the heel, you know, I would switch up the heel construction.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you're having trouble with that. So
no question.
Yeah.
So we're almost done now with these. It's going to be a long mini-sode. It's going to be a maxi-sode, as we say sometimes. So I would love to know how you store your knitwear. I have had some issues with little bugs and would like some ideas. You want to go?
I don't know. I feel like I've been talking a lot.
Okay, I'll talk.
Okay.
So I don't have a moth issue necessarily. So I just always, I buy tons of cedar chips, cedar
block
things, balls, everything. I just, and I fold my knitwear. I have this, it makes me cry. I understand why the samples in the store are hanging. It's easier to see them, but it just makes me sad because the hanger is just going to stretch out the shoulders and everything. I almost would rather see it over the bar, like a pants hanger, see it hanging. But even that, it's just going to stretch. So I fold my knitwear somewhat carefully, depending on how lazy I am, and keep it in a cabinet. Jonna's little cabinet's over there. I stole her idea. And then it has like a glass front door and just filled with cedar chips and everything. Not chips, but cedar balls, cedar blocks. And I just don't worry about it. So luckily, but I did hear that freezing them, I mean, I know Arna and Carlos say they put their knitwear out every winter. Either lay it on the snow or hang it outside in the below freezing
and they don't
weather.
Wash because wool is antimicrobial.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're really expelling something.
Right, unless it's soiled.
Everyday wear. But that, you know, cold freezing will kill them. But yeah.
Yeah, I haven't had any trouble, but I am like uber worried about it. So I have these cedar blocks, and you should take sandpaper to these every once in a while to just, you know.
So they don't catch?
Yeah. No, because
it to rough it up.
Rough it up.
I see,
so that
to get the
still,
smell.
Right. Still smells like cedar. I also have some lovely bars of soap that are nice and a lot full of essential oils. I also have little bags of, there are cedar shavings in here. And I sprinkle this oil that I bought at Rhinebeck, I believe. So I resaturate the cedar shavings in here. They're nice and smelly. They
but you really want like
wonderful.
Raw cedar shavings, not like the stuff that for pets, because it has chemicals all over it.
Oh yeah, not like rabbit litter. Or something right. But I also have, and it's hiding behind here, so I can't grab it. I also have these clothing moth traps that have pheromones in them. You can tell I'm like uber worried, right? So I have never caught a moth, but they attract moths, and so they're actually hiding behind here. And I hang them in my closets also because I do have some scarves and you know, a few wool things that are hanging, like my wool pants, my wool skirts are hanging. But this cabinet that Kim talked about, I found in my daughter's house when they moved in. So the people they bought the house from left it behind. And it was a stereo cabinet, and it's got a glass front. And I was like, oh, I want that. So it turned out to be perfect.
Yeah.
It displays all my sweaters. They're all folded. I've got accessories in there too. I also have a peg. What do you call that? A peg rack. A rack with pegs on it.
Like a coat hanger with pegs. Like
and I have some small little decorative hangers, and I like to hang different knits on that.
But not for an extended period of time.
No, just mostly decorative. I have my mittens up there, and I have some of my smaller scarves like this one, a baby sweater, and some of my project bags to remind me, look inside this project bag, and don't forget.
Don't forget what's in here. It's funny. That's difficult with when you get moths. That's horrible.
Yeah.
And I think that's what country would you like to visit to purchase yarn? I don't know. I don't have them.
Really? Have
You're
you been
Norway.
to Denmark?
Are you Norway? Denmark?
Well, I would love to go to Norway. And I'd love to go to like the Rauma outlet store and the Hillesberg and I'd love to go to all those stores. But I would love to go to Denmark. I love Kama Rose and Petite Knit.
Is Wolfolk also?
Meta lives there. Knitting for Olive yarn is from there. What else? Anyway, and I think my mom named me after a Danish friend, so I have this. I imagine that there'll be lots of other Jonas there.
Mm-hmm. So
I think it's mostly a Finnish name, but anyway, I would love to go to Denmark, to Norway, to buy yarn. I mean, Italy has some beautiful yarn too.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll buy yarn anywhere.
Yeah.
I don't have like a
destination.
I don't have a bucket list. Destination now in mind. Would you ever design your own patterns?
Yes, I would love to. And speaking of, a new knitter, Rebecca from the Crayabea podcast, it's purely magic. I don't know where she is coming up with these designs. I don't know how she is grading these patterns. I don't know what kind of innate ability she was born with to be able to do this, but she's a relatively new knitter. And some of the patterns, all of her patterns are just incredible.
Wow.
Just stunning. She's really making a huge splash, I think, in the knitting world.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, it still seems like fantastical or magical or out of my reach to design, but I would absolutely love to do it. And I think like I have all like the raw skills, but I don't know, it just seems like it seems impossible. Like in outer space.
I've looked up and wondered if there's a way to like, people say they're master knitters. Where do you take those classes? Where, like, I can take a few different classes at Vogue Knitting Live, but I'm not going to get that skill set from a few random classes. I would love to get like a degree in knitwear, but not machine knitting. I don't know. Sorry, machine knitters, but like hand knitting. Like I wish that existed.
Oh, really?
I would so do that. But because then you'd learn those. I hear Teddy.
I know Teddy's barking. Hopefully my husband is with him. So I would love to design my own patterns, but the closest I've come are those mitts, and I downloaded the Wool Needles Hands fire pit mitts, but I didn't want to roll cuff, so I decided to just knit the cuff. I used the 40 stitches that she suggested to cast on, but I just knit the cuff, and I followed the increases for the thumbs, and then I did an I-cord bind off. So it was a Franken pattern. I kind of used a little bit of her pattern, and I just kind of winged it. So that's the closest I've come. And, if someone said, well, can you make them bigger or smaller? I'm not sure I could.
Right.
So, yeah.
But I think there's just Excel spreadsheets that do that eventually.
Grading patterns.
Grading, yeah. So we're really down to like the last couple of questions. What to do with mini skeins? I think that's the last question.
Well, I don't know, because I have a bunch of mini skeins that I haven't done anything with. But I guess it depends if they're fingering. Honestly, I got over my fear of knitting stripes by knitting a stripy sock. So I love striped socks. I would, if they're fingering a Musselboro hat, an Osso hat, any kind of, striped hat. I got over my fear of weaving in ends. My fear of just not having this one long strand of yarn for this cohesive fabric, My striped socks are great. There's no holes. They didn't fall apart or anything. So
yeah, basically, so any small circumference thing, you can use your mini skeins and stripe. I mean, that's definitely easy.
Yeah. But I also think you could do either a crocheted or knitted blanket where honestly you just start with one of your mini skeins and knit as long as you can, and then pick up the next mini skein and knit as long as you can.
Right.
If you're using maybe some DK mini skeins would be good. But also save them for the colorwork projects, for colorwork yokes. It's nice to use a mini skein. Where you just don't need that much yarn.
Yeah.
There's also a way to search on Ravelry for mini skein projects.
Oh, wow.
And I think you search for scrappy projects, and then you put the yardage required way on the high side, like 1,000 yards or 2,000 yards or something, and then type in scrappy, and you'll come up with some scrappy projects.
I think also any Advent projects. A lot of Advent projects are based on the idea.
So you could just put a keyword Advent.
And then it's either little sections or little, you get little bits of yarn, and then you knit with that yarn that day. But,
right.
Yeah.
But your sweater number 15? 14?
14, I think.
14. She just did a contrasting V-neck, contrasting cuffs. You could have used mini skeins for that too.
I think it would be cool too to do a sweater in like a solid color and then do really long ribbing and have the ribbing be a bunch of different color stripes.
Oh yeah, stripes.
I think that would be so
That'd
cool.
That'd be pretty.
Yeah. Or you could do that's not really mini skeins.
I
was going to say corrugated ribbing.
You could do a blanket where you're making squares also. True. Or crochet, like you're doing the primrose blanket. So crochet individual things that at the end you sew together.
Or make little toys. I mean, you can always use
tons of toys.
Or embroidery. You can then embroider on your garments.
Embroider on your garments.
Little flowers.
That was definitely trending last year. I felt like we saw a lot of embroidered flowers on sweaters. Yep. Very, very pretty.
So, I think that's it.
Okay.
Wow, knitting edition. Ask us anything knitting edition is now complete.
I know, it's so different from our more personal one.
And I meant to say this at the beginning, disclaimer at the end. When we do videos like this, we get these comments, talk, or too much talking, or whatever. Well, maybe we could put it in like the title. Disclaimer, we talk a lot.
Right. Grab your knitting or slow knitting or...
Yeah.
But there is one question from our previous Ask Us Anything that we didn't get to answer. And I love the food questions, of course. But what's your perfect knitting day? What does your perfect knitting day look like as far as, where you'd be sitting and what you'd be doing? And what's your favorite thing to cook or have on the stove? Kind of your perfect knitting day. And I'm totally butchering this. But
my perfect knitting day is sitting somewhere not at home. We have this tiny house resort we love to go to, or of course Mohawk. It's crazy expensive, so it's only a special occasion. Like sitting on a porch, looking at water, and obviously being served food, just food brought to me.
Yeah.
Little tiny short eating breaks, and just knit all day in a rocking chair or in front of a fire. I wouldn't mind in front of a fire, somewhere quiet, no noise. If my husband's there, I tend to not listen to or watch anything because I just want to be there with him. If he's not there, then I might listen to something. But actually, when we go away, we never turn. If there's a TV in the room, we never turn the TV on. Basically. But yeah, that's my perfect day.
Nice.
What about you?
Well, it would definitely be in my house in front of the fire, for sure. And I love soup.
Oh, wow.
So I love all kinds of soup. Like, I have a cookbook called Saved by Soup, and I'm pretty sure I've been saved by soup a number of times. So I love split pea soup and lentil soup, and my husband's like, soup? Oh, okay, well, I think there's something in the freezer I can warm up.
That's what I feel like. Okay, then what am I going to have after the soup? That's how I feel.
And he'll still be peckish after the soup, so he likes like a grilled cheese sandwich with the soup. Right. But I can literally eat the same soup for a week 3 meals a day, and I'm totally fine.
Oh, wow.
And he just can't do that. He just doesn't want to have the same thing over and over again. I think we talked about this. I kind of just, I eat the same thing every day, so I don't mind eating, if I make a big pot of lentil soup. So it'll be like split pea soup, or it'll be some kind of soup on the stove. So
that's funny.
Yeah, I'm a soup person. So, anyway, there you go.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
So we did it.
Yeah. All right.
We filmed it. Now I just have to edit it.
I know.
So don't forget to, if you want to become a member, become a member. If you click the join button, it only shows up on some devices, right? Which is kind of weird. But if you click the join button, it doesn't automatically join you. It just gives you a little bit more information. We should re-record now that we know more about memberships. Because in the beginning, they say, record a video explaining your memberships. And we did that having no idea what memberships were.
Well, and now we have the private Facebook group for members, too. So
yes. Yes.
Something that we could talk about.
Which is fun. And then also, like, subscribe. And, yeah. It's fun.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Am I on camera?
What does that say?
I think there's a the.
Okay, cut this. Let's edit that out.
Okay. Honestly, babies have probably pooped on this floor. I'm not too worried.
We were at the gym today knitting a little bit, and these 2 little boys came in with their dad.
Oops.
Ooh, one of our lights went out. Is it not plugged in?
Of course, I want to answer all the food ones again. Oh, is the extension cord not plugged in?
No.
I'm surprised it lasted as long as it did. Yeah, let's answer all the food ones. This is the most knitting I've gotten done since we got Teddy.